want to welcome you to the launch of the Endeavour SME Fund Local Scale-Up Program. This is a really exciting program that aims to accelerate the growth of high-impact entrepreneurs, both locally and globally. As the SME Fund, our mandate, as most of you know, is to stimulate entrepreneurship. And we do this primarily via a fund of funds model. And the team to date has invested about 1.2 billion in a diverse portfolio of funds ranging from VC to private equity and to debt. And as many of you recall, this capital came from our 50 plus corporate shareholders and the PIC. And that grouping of shareholders has been incredibly committed to supporting entrepreneurs. The other prong of what the SME Fund's mandate is to play a leading role in the broader entrepreneurial ecosystem. I know that ecosystem is a much overused term, but I think today it's very apt. And Endeavour is one of those ecosystem organizations that we believe is best of breed, and we're very excited to be partnering with them. Endeavour is part of a worldwide organization. They're headquartered in New York. They have about 38 offices internationally. And they believe, as do we, that high impact entrepreneurs, so those entrepreneurs that scale incredibly quickly, that are tech enabled, and that have got real track records, are one of the key drivers of economic growth. And so globally, what we see is that these very successful entrepreneurs have a remarkable way of multiplying their impact. They spin off, they start other businesses, they invest in other startups. You know, we see this Silicon Valley, Bangalore, Stellenbosch. We see these brilliant ecosystems wherever we look. And that is a virtuous cycle, if you like, that we hope this local scale up, so this partnership between Endeavour and the SME Fund will replicate. So today's speakers will give us a lot more insight on these topics. Our headline speaker is Adrian Gore. Adrian doesn't need much introduction. He is one of South Africa's most iconic and successful entrepreneurs. And not only is Adrian the founder and CEO of the Discovery Group, but he was also the founding chairperson of Endeavour South Africa and is chair of the SME Fund. And Adrian will share his thoughts and insights on entrepreneurship. Alison, who you'll also see on the screen, Alison Collier is the MD of Endeavour South Africa, and she will talk a lot more about the local scale-up program. After that, she will interview Arda Koterin, who's the co-founder of Insider. And Insider is an incredibly successful Turkish company that's part of the Endeavour network. They'll be followed by Melvin Lubega, who is another Endeavour entrepreneur, and he co-founded Go1, which is an e-learning tech business that's really received amazing global recognition. And lastly, our last speaker will be Lethabo Motsoaledi. She's a co-founder of Voik, and she's one of the participants in this year's local scale-up program. So with that, I'd like to kick off. Please will all of you keep your videos and yourselves on mute. And Adrian, over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. You said I'm the keynote speaker. I don't know what it means. I hope I've got a bit of time to speak up with some kind of unstructured comments I wanted to give. I mean, firstly, just to make the point, I mean, I've been involved in Endeavour from the start in SA. It's a remarkable organization. It has an incredible ability to scale businesses, to help, to network, it has a global reach. And I think the SA SME Fund is incredibly excited to be doing this with you. And the fund itself, as Lisa said, has got amazing power. So I think it's a coming together of two very powerful capabilities that I believe will have a dramatic impact on you, hopefully, and on the country by definition. I mean, I thought I'd make a number of comments about entrepreneurship. They may be unstructured, but I did want to make them because I think entrepreneurship for sure is the most powerful thing in any economy. It's underappreciated in many ways. It is the driving force of economic growth. It's a driving force of job creation, and so economies need it. And for the individuals involved, like myself and you guys, it is a remarkable journey to be on. It's the most exciting thing you can ever do. I've been on my journey for nearly 30 years, and every day feels like it's just starting out. I really feel that it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I thought I'd make a few comments about myths about entrepreneurship in the context of South Africa, maybe, but to make the points. I mean, I guess the first point, the myth of time that you often hear from people now is not the time, to be an entrepreneur. Now is not the time to be building a business. And you hear that more and more as economic times get tougher. We're going through a pandemic, through lockdowns, and I know many of you and others have struggled through this time, and others have lost their businesses. But I wanted to make the point that now is precisely the time for entrepreneurship. And in fact, the more difficult times are, my deep conviction is it's the best time to build. When economic times are difficult, prices are lower, opportunities are underpriced, people and competitors are distracted, and it's precisely the time to invest if you can, and it's the time to build a business from the start if you can. It's a time to scale. This is the opportunity. I mean, I guess it goes without saying, if you're buying a house, buy it when prices are down. Don't buy it when the market is frothy. And the same with the business. If you're investing, the time to do it is when times are difficult. The other point I'd make is kind of it's axiomatic on this point, is that unless you believe that there's going to be Armageddon in some way, you should invest, and you should invest more when prices are kind of lower than they have been. So this really is a time, in my view, to invest. It's a time to build. And I'd like to give you my anecdote of starting Discovery. Discovery started in 1991. We started the build in 1992 and then launched really late 92 into 1993. I mean, the important point about that is it was precisely at the change of South Africa from apartheid to democracy. It was 1990 when Nelson Mandela was freed, and 94, the first democratic elections. That 4-year period, if some of you are as old as I am, will remember that it was a time of considerable uncertainty. Much more uncertainty about the future of the country, I think. Then there was a lot of hope and excitement, obviously, with apartheid coming to an end. But how it would play out, we had the Bishu massacre, we had Boipatong, we had a sense of just potential civil unrest. Chris Hani was murdered, if you remember right. There were real, just powerful, potent social forces taking place. There was huge amounts of immigration, a lot of fear that the country would result in civil war. And I'll tell you this, that there was no intelligence on my side and the guys I've worked with starting Discovery in that time. But I learned a deep lesson. While others were fleeing and distracted and concerned and focused on issues, we were building our business. And the truth is, when the market returned and stability returned and a sense of future returned, we were in play. We were already in play, invested, products ready to launch, teams in place, an amazing opportunity kind of emerged, I think, from the timing. And I have to say this to you, in entrepreneurship, a lot of success is about luck and about timing. And to an extent, from that moment, I've had a deep conviction that it's in very, very difficult times that you must build. We're doing the same with our Discovery Bank. We've rolled it out. The first year of Discovery Bank's rollout has been in a pandemic. I mean, it's an idiotic idea to think that you're rolling out a bank during a pandemic, but I'm really pleased with it. It's turning out exactly, to an extent, better than we planned. Our deposit gathering rate is higher than we expected. I was concerned during a pandemic, how would you get deposits? Quite the opposite. We've got kind of too much funding in the bank. And it's quite remarkable. So exactly the same formula. I think when the world settles down, and for sure it will, we're in play. We already have 300,000 customers, 700,000 accounts. We're moving quickly now. And so I remain considerably confident about now is the time to build. The more difficult the times are, I think the more you need to accelerate. Don't take your foot off the accelerator. Don't be concerned. I'm not suggesting being frivolous, not being concerned about risk. I'm saying in terms of timing, now is the time. The second point to make is about not about time, but about place. I believe South Africa is a fantastic place for entrepreneurship. I know, and Lisa, the SME Fund, has done a lot of work on this. We have red tape and all kinds of barriers to entry and this, that, and the other. And I think those are real. Those are policy issues. But I'm saying to you, at a cultural level, South Africans have a pioneering spirit. We have an amazing ability to build, to withstand complexity, and we just do that. Just an interesting thing. I grew up near the Wanderers cricket ground. There's a bunch of flats in that area, if you've ever been there. I grew up in a house nearby, but in that area, it's just amazing. I met a number of unbelievable entrepreneurs that just grew up in that block. It's quite unbelievable. So down the road, Steve Collis grew up, who now runs one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in America. He's actually been helpful in some of the vaccine discussions. Ivan Glazenberg, who built Glencore, was a neighbor of mine in a building next door. Glencore, as you know, is the biggest commodities, or one of the biggest mining companies in the world today. Unbelievable story on his own. And then I met a guy in the US who built one of the biggest insurance companies in America that underwrites cell phone loss risk was making, I think, $500 million US a year of profit with virtually no capital. So, these stories I'm sure perpetuate all the way, but I'm telling you, we have a culture of entrepreneurship. So there's something in the South African pioneering spirit. And I think now, in my day, starting out, 80% of the population were held down by apartheid. Now we have a much bigger canvas to play with. The skills and the talent and the culture is remarkable. But I guess the point about place is maybe more educated. Firstly, I think people underrate the size of our market. Secondly, they have this continual view that we're in inevitable decline. And of course, we're not. Our GDP is not shrinking. Ignoring the pandemic, I'm saying over time, our GDP is not shrinking. The economy in dollar terms is much bigger than it was. The middle class is growing. I have this constant debate with analysts when we meet with analysts overseas who talk about discovery being often at the middle or top of the market, and will that market shrink? Of course, it won't shrink. Unless your economy is declining, that market has to be growing. It's probably changing in color, and that's an excellent thing. So these kind of declinist mindsets that we have, we behaviorally coded to be declinist, are absolutely not true. And again, I think entrepreneurs often see through things that others just fear. So the market is big. I believe it's growing, and it therefore is a place to invest. But I wanted to make the point about South Africa. I think is unique. Whenever there's transformation, there's opportunity. Whenever there's challenge, there's opportunity. And entrepreneurs see through those challenges and see the opportunity. I'll tell you this, in our business, fundamentally, the public sector is having a difficult time. There is no public sector safety net in terms of healthcare, in terms of retirement savings for people who are earning certain amounts of money. They want the private sector is effectively a public sector safety net. And therefore, the extent of businesses that can be built around providing these services, where in many countries are provided by the public sector, is remarkable. So in financial services, for example, the South African insurance market has been a leader across the world. And the reason for that is simply because we have to do things that in many countries private sectors don't have to do. So businesses grow and they fill that gap. And I would say to you that as the public sector has a difficult time, and that's not a good thing, we have to help the public sector. We are patriots, we need to help where we can. But inevitably, the public sector is having difficulty. Opportunities emerge where the private sector moves in and to an extent offers products and services in that regard. And so South Africa's transformation and its challenges and often hostile investment environments creates the unique opportunity for entrepreneurship. I want to tell you our story just in this regard. We had the simple idea of building a health insurance company in South Africa. How do you do it where you've got too few doctors, you've got terrible levels of disease burden, we've got both terrible levels of infectious disease, HIV, AIDS, and other stuff. We've got a shortage of doctors. It's a complicated market. Our simple insight was the idea of making people healthier. It was a completely local idea of how would you build a health insurance company by making people healthy? And we came up with this very simple hunch of incentivizing people to be healthy. That became Vitality. The reality of that idea, which is based purely on a South African local set of challenges, has become a business model that is really, really scaling across the world. Our partners, Ping On, AIA, John Hancock in America, etc., 30% of the world's insured population is covered by our partners, are embracing this model, built purely in South Africa based on the South African complexities of our local market. And so the point I'm making to you is that South Africa is a big market, it's a unique market, it is complex and hostile in many ways, but I think entrepreneurs look through that if they're smart and they see opportunity. So now is the time, and I think South Africa is the place, I would say. And then the third point, maybe controversial, is the myth of money making. I think entrepreneurship is about making money, of course, but I would say to you, and I'd urge you, if that's your simple goal, I think you will have a short-term burn. Obviously, you need to build a business that is successful financially, but I'd say to you, in our journey, I think one of the things that I think separated us from the get-go is a framework of purpose and values. We kind of set out with this idea of what are we trying to do, make people healthier, 8 core values that define what we've done, and we haven't changed that in the nearly 30 years that we've rolled out Discovery. So there's always been a sense of purpose about what we've done, and that purpose has been an absolute North Star. So forget about the soft issues of ticking boxes around ESG. I'm saying authentic purpose, a view that you're not just here to make money. If you offer something that's special that adds value to society, you will prosper. And I'll tell you, in virtually every decision making we had, the build of Vitality itself was built around the idea that what are we trying to do? We're trying to make people healthier. It led to products, it led to services that are different and differentiated. And I would tell you that if we'd start out Discovery with a simple view of maximize shareholder value, make profits as quick as you can, my sense is that we wouldn't be here today. So the third myth I would say is that I think great businesses, of course, make money, but they don't focus on money. I think they focus on purpose. And again, I think in a world today that you're hiring smart people, the best people that are focused on purpose. I think millennials think differently, certainly than we did in my day. And I think the opportunity here to build entrepreneurship around purpose, not just money, is quite critical. So I hope I'm giving you some insights. My journey has certainly given me a deep conviction about timing. In difficult times, it's time to build. About place, I'm a great believer in South Africa, and it's a fantastic place to build in and of itself, but also to scale globally if you decide to do that. And then thirdly, to focus on purpose, not just on money. You've got to make money. And I'm not suggesting purpose by ticking boxes. You must focus on building your business. But products that are excellent, that meet society's needs, is what you need to pursue. And then finally, sorry, Lisa, I may be overstepping my time. Finally, just a point about, in my view, about success as an entrepreneur. You're going to come across many challenges, and you have. I found, I hope I'm not being patronizing, the most powerful attribute of all is being positive. It doesn't mean that you should be naive to risk, but I'm just saying to you, I think the most successful entrepreneurs have this uncanny deep belief in themselves, a belief that you can always figure out a way, no matter how bad things get, no matter how difficult the problems you face. There's always a way through this. There's always a way to scale. There's always a solution to whatever problem you have. And I, in my view, much more important than intelligence, IQ, or whatever, is attitude about the ability to prevail. So I hope my comments are worthwhile. Very proud to be associated, to be chairing the SA SME Fund. Very, very proud to work with Endeavour in this venture. And to you guys, I just wish you great success. It's a very, very exciting world. And I think juxtaposing people's attitudes of decline with your passion about building is a wonderful nuclear fuel to really scaling. So Lisa, Alison, good luck to you guys. I hope my comments are appropriate. Just wish you great success and scale. Nothing more important for you, and nothing more important for us as a country. Thanks for listening.
Adrian, that was, as always, I think, an inspirational tour de force. Really fascinating insights into your own journey. And I think you've framed that entrepreneurial narrative, the power of entrepreneurs, perfectly. Debunking some of those myths about what's required to build brilliant businesses. And I think listening to you, when I hear about this idea of finding and exploiting opportunities in a challenging economic environment, are spot on. People talk about being disruptive, but I think taking those real risks when everyone else is running to safety is something that's incredibly admirable. And I think it's also something that only a few people are wired that way, real entrepreneurs. And being positive isn't trite and it isn't superficial. It's something that I think those entrepreneurs have, and it's incredibly powerful. So thank you. I'd like to now move on to Alison, who's the MD of Endeavour locally, and she's going to give us a lot more insight and detail into the local scale-up program. Alison has got more than 20 years of experience working in large multinationals. She worked at McKinsey, she worked at SAP Miller, Unilever, and she's also had real experience being an entrepreneur. She led the expansion of Boss Teas. For those of you who remember that, Boss Iced Tea to Europe. And Ali has been overseas for many, many years, and she came back 2 years ago to come lead Endeavour. So Alison, over to you.
Thanks so much, Lisa, and great to be here. So before getting into the local scale-up program, I just wanted to share a bit more background on Endeavour, building on what you heard from Lisa and Adrian. But really at the outset, for us as Endeavour, why this partnership with the SA SME Fund is just at the right time, is the mandate of the SA SME Fund looking to drive growth in South Africa through supporting medium-sized entrepreneurs is 100% aligned to what Endeavour does globally and also here in South Africa. So like what Lisa said earlier, Endeavour, it's a global organization headquartered out of New York. We're present in 38 different markets, and it's really Endeavour's reason for being is to support high impact, medium-sized, scalable entrepreneurs, specifically those in emerging markets, and assist them with their scaling to be market leading position in their local market and also internationally. And what we've seen, and exactly what Lisa was mentioning, is that these entrepreneurs that really are looking to drive their businesses and grow their businesses to be market leaders locally and also internationally create an over-indexed impact in their local markets through reinvesting the wealth and the successes that they've had from their first business, both financially and also, I want to say sometimes more importantly, sharing the learnings that they've had as entrepreneurs with the up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So a little bit more about Endeavour and the portfolio that we work with today in South Africa. There are 29 Endeavour entrepreneurs that we support actively. Then now we've just recently launched earlier this year our local scale-up program to support slightly earlier stage entrepreneurs that are South Africa based. And then over and above that, we've got more than 50 businesses that we work with that are in the pipeline. But how does Endeavour work, and how does Endeavour really support the entrepreneurs that are in our portfolio today to scale and to accelerate their growth? So the asset that Endeavour has, and that was alluded to by both Lisa and Adrian, is across our market, 38 markets that we work, there's an incredibly powerful mentor network that Endeavour has. And this mentor network is set up with leading investors, with real global business leaders from industry, and then also, and almost most importantly, highly successful entrepreneurs who've been there and done it and exited their businesses, as well as scaling them globally. And those individuals are all incredibly well positioned to share their learnings and their guidance and advice with the up and coming entrepreneurs. So just to sort of bring that mentor network to life, who's the caliber of that mentor network? And I think the depth and the breadth of expertise that sit in the Endeavour network locally and globally is what really sets it apart and enables Endeavour to really assist the entrepreneurs with very tailored mentoring in the right space. So just as an example, globally on the board, the likes of Reid Hoffman, who's the co-founder of LinkedIn. We've got execs from Facebook's global board, as well as partners from the leading VCs internationally, Andreessen and general partners. So I want to say, when you have got the access to those type of individuals through a trusted network, they can really put you in touch with the right VCs globally or give you the right advice as you're scaling your business to the next level. And then again, if you look closer to home, who's our board in South Africa? You heard from Adrian and Lisa. Adrian Gore was the founding chairman of Endeavour in South Africa. And more recently, Herman Bosman, the CEO of RMI, is now the chair of South Africa. Barry Swartzberg, one of the co-founders of Discovery, sits on our board now. And he's supported by many leading individuals in South Africa. Jen, the CEO of Ernst & Young, is on our board, as well as Vukani, the CEO of Accenture. And in addition, we've got some really powerful entrepreneurs who likewise are on Endeavour's board. And when you've got mentor networks like this, with boards with the strength of our local board here, and it's replicated in all the other 38 markets, you as an entrepreneur, you're really able to get the right advice. What's incredible to see is that this entire mentor network is all pro bono. So the mentor network is about 5,000 strong globally. We've got about 250 VC investors that are part of our network, and then that's supported by 2,000 entrepreneurs. So it's really with this breadth of expertise that we're able to provide the right advice, tailored advice and guidance to the businesses. So just to put this in numbers and actually talk about what is the performance and what's the size of these businesses that we work with. So the portfolio that we work with today, it's 29 businesses that are Endeavour entrepreneurs in South Africa. When we say medium size, the average revenue of these businesses is around 200 million. So they're relatively large businesses. They range from, say, 50 million rand all the way up to $1 billion plus. And what's very impressive is the growth that these businesses deliver. So these businesses over the past 3 years, from 2017, they've had a weighted average revenue growth of 26%. And then when you look at the job creation has been running at a weighted average of 16%. So what does that mean? Is that these 28 businesses have added 2.6 billion rand to the economy over the past 3 years. And jobs-wise, they've created more than 4,300 jobs. The 28 businesses employ close to 12,000 people. And what's also wonderful to see is the transformation that they drive. 75% of these employees are Black South Africans. And then over and above that, what we've seen, which has really been leading the growth, is the capital raising that these businesses and the capital these businesses have been able to attract. So the portfolio raised about 700 million in 2019. Then collectively across the portfolio last year, these businesses raised 2 billion. And then this year, it looks like the businesses are going to raise north of 3 billion. So what's really encouraging to see is the strong signal from the market that actually the market's seeing huge opportunity in this high growth, high impact entrepreneurial segment. And just to call out, majority of these businesses are tech-enabled. They are therefore really scalable and scalable globally. And if we look at just the businesses that are, range between 10 million up to 1 billion, then the growth numbers jump significantly. Then the growth numbers are more like 36% on a weighted average basis. And then for revenue and for job creation, it's 26% on a weighted average basis for the last 3 years. So wonderful to see this positive growth and exceptionally strong during the crisis that we had last year. And I want to say with that, it really led Endeavour to say, we would love to do more and support an additional set of upcoming entrepreneurs in the South African market. And then reached out to the SA SME Fund. And I want to say that's really where we came up with the partnership. And so it's all about saying there's this wonderful opportunity that these businesses are creating so much value for our markets. They're attracting so much capital. And then so let's as Endeavour and the SA SME Fund, extend the reach that we have and set up a program to basically close to double the reach that Endeavour has locally in South Africa. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us, and we're really excited to launch this local scale-up program. So then into the local scale-up program itself. So we've got 15 entrepreneurs who signed up and in the program. It's a 12-month structured business mentoring. And these entrepreneurs will have full access to our South African mentor network, as well as our South Africa team and the regional teams in Endeavour, supporting the initial phases of these businesses in their international expansion. Some examples of the businesses that have signed up, it's very similar to the profile of the businesses that we work with as Endeavour. It's all tech-enabled businesses. They're all highly scalable. All of them have really been built to serve the international market, where they do their first offer is always out to the home market. And as you heard from Adrian, the South African market is a wonderful place to set up a business. It's complex. It's got very strong corporates, but also it's got a long tail and a lot of complexities in serving the broader set of consumers. So with that, the entrepreneurs are very well positioned to perform well at a global scale. We've got a good mix of entrepreneurs across the different verticals: fintech, software as a service businesses, some edtech businesses. You're going to hear from Lethabo from Voice later, which is a wonderful AI business, and also a few businesses that are playing in the smart city and the retail consumer platform space. Candua is one of them that come to mind. So with that, I just wanted to reiterate thanks as Endeavour to the SA SME Fund for us to be partnering with a player like the SA SME Fund, who's linked with the top 50 corporates in South Africa and the PIC, and really doubling down the investment in this space in high impact, high growth entrepreneurs. I really see it as a wonderful step forward in South Africa, and I think what it's going to do is really, put these entrepreneurs on the stage and really attract more investment from, the likes of different financial institutions, which previously didn't have so much appetite to invest in this high growth space. We're seeing that changing daily with the growing commercial opportunity that these businesses are offering. And I think with Endeavour and the SA SME Fund working together to accelerate the growth of a wider set of businesses in South Africa will only accelerate that. So thanks so much, Lisa and Adrian. Wonderful to be working with you. And with that, I wanted to welcome Arda from Insider for a quick discussion and for him to answer a set of questions, so he can share his story of building out Insider. So just as a recap, Lisa already did an introduction in the opening. Arda, he's one of the co-founders of Insider. It's a Turkish endeavor entrepreneur. They started their business 9 years ago in Istanbul, and I want to say have grown to be now present in 25 different markets. They've got over 650 employees globally and have successfully raised over $25 million of capital. And I want to say are on an incredible growth journey, and really excited to learn from you. For us, a business like Insider, with their home market being in Turkey and having successfully scaled to some of the biggest markets in the world, is a wonderful example of a high impact entrepreneur that, you know, despite the economic hardship that sit in your local market, have successfully gone and blazed a trail internationally. So looking forward to hearing from you, Arda.
Okay, Alison, thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm really happy to share all of our, let's say, experiences, also our thoughts regarding how you guys can be successful in your countries. Because when I'm thinking entrepreneurship, the most important thing is the mindset, and this mindset really helps you succeed in a different circumstances. So in this regard, what I'm thinking is the being optimistic is very crucial. I think I am a bit overlapping with Adrian's thought on this. And meantime, like combining this with critical thinking, and this helps you to understand what are the pros and cons. So I don't think there is a single point that we are in a position that we have all the advantages, or we are all having disadvantages. I try to see everything in a two-dimension. And when you look at this, like being in a, let's say disadvantageous country can be very advantageous regarding how you are just like taking those advantages or disadvantages. For example, like this is also something mentioned that maybe currency is depreciating, right? So it's a disadvantage, right? But if you are selling overseas, then it's turning to be advantage, right? Because your cost is in the local currency, but you are exporting more, and you are just like getting in a more advantage position. So when I'm thinking this, in my opinion, in countries like us, let's say, I think the most advantageous thing is the mindset and the ambition behind, because entrepreneurship should come up with something more ideal. It should come up with the cause. It helps us to get the right cause, and you are leaning the right thing. And this is most valuable thing, in my opinion. If you have the right causes and if you have the right mindset, it helps you to understand the circumstances and adapt those circumstances as well. So in this point, like also like coming from this background, help you to navigate in tougher situations. And it doesn't matter you are in Silicon Valley or somewhere else. You are going to be in a position of struggling if you are an entrepreneur, right? So people are having the same problem as well. So those are something that we can see as an advantage in coming from such countries or backgrounds.
All I can say, Arda, I couldn't agree with you more. And when you start off your business bootstrapped in a fashion that you need to do an emerging market where there's a volatile economy, a volatile currency, you always can find a solution, because there's no other option. You don't survive unless you find a solution. And so therefore the mindset has to be there from the get-go, whereas some of the larger markets where capital is easier to come by, entrepreneurs only learn that, you know, a couple of years down the line, and then it's much more difficult. But I want to say, before going into the additional questions, I wanted you to share a little bit more about what Insider offers through to the market. One, what your offering is, and then two, also where you're planning to take the business. So what's your global vision?
Sure. So since the day one, we are serving to marketers. We are helping them to boost their digital growth, because it's one of the fundamental problem of the companies. They're trying to transform their company somewhere that they really can just take the advantage of the e-commerce or any, let's say, a digital business. We are just standing somewhere that we are helping e-commerce teams, marketing teams to combine their digital assets with their communication channels and using big data that we are helping them to use strong marketing automation tools with Insider, which is delivering a unique set of value for time to value, plus also execution without dependency to any technical sources. Plus, they are taking the advantage of the automations to decrease the manpower that they need to put, more automated decision making that is going to optimize the let's say the journeys with their customers and so on. We are just standing somewhere that since the day one we focus on the marketers, but we haven't focused on the solution. This is something maybe a bit different in our vision. So we focus on a problem. I think we find the right problem. It's not a, how can I say, you don't need to be genius to find the right problem. It's over there, you can find it. But our perspective over this was a bit different. So we taught the customer first and what they really need to do, and we scaled our product accordingly. So overall, in entrepreneurial mindset, what I observe is people are enthusiastic about their tools or their offerings, but kind of like make them to going off track when it comes to the serving to the needs. So we were always like coming up set of solutions, tech or service whatsoever, which is going to make our customers to succeed. So my main role is in Insider is the customer success, and this was the one of the approach that we adopted, and we extended our features and tools somewhere that we are covering all the needs of the marketers to make them succeed in digital business. So in our vision, so we are quite clear on that we would like to be the most successful selected enterprise marketing tool, marketing software in the world, and we would like to deliver this in all the countries that we are in right now. Recently, we expanded to States, and we are also Japan and also Korea and all the APAC, Europe, and so on. So again, like we set this vision in the day one. Again, we would like to be global. So this is another thing that we set it in that direction, and we are achieving so far. Hopefully, we are going to be reaching to, let's say, $1 billion company soon, and one of the milestones that we would like to reach.
Well, I can say is you're well on your way in that direction, and I think just the point that you made is exactly in line with what Adrian was calling out. It's about the purpose of your business and what you're setting out to achieve, what problem you're looking to solve, and focusing on that, and then the rest will follow. And then the second piece, you know, from when you started out as Insider, you were set up for the global market. You weren't built for the Turkish market. The ambition was for a global market. And just on that, would love to hear from you what any advice that you've got or the learnings that you had when you made the first step internationally, because the first market internationally is always the hardest, and then you've got a case to use for the next one. So any advice for the South African entrepreneurs on that?
Yeah. Our first market, by the way, was Russia. So I can tell it's like a double trouble. I can tell like it's very tough market, very special market, like in an extent closed market. And also in a way, it was quite welcoming to the new solutions and so on. So in that regard, like the challenges, of course, like every market has its own dynamics, and you need to adapt this in an extent. But also we were kind of like lucky. Why? I see all the digital marketing communities are kind of close to each other, even though their cultural backgrounds are quite different, because they have the same challenges, they have the same, let's say, opportunities, same struggles, and almost the same background, like based on the education and everything, how much they are exposed to the global culture and so on. We are kind of lucky in that regard, and this is one of the things that I would suggest to all entrepreneurs, especially focus on a problem that they can really solve in a scale, and it could be something that they really can scale, because when it comes to the reaching to other countries, software as a service is a great point that you really can serve in a distant way. By the way, we are expanding with the local offices as well, but it's not much an effort to expand there as long as you are getting the right team and also the right starting initial customers. So one of the things is the overall setup that you need to think how you're going to serve overseas to other countries. and also you need to make the setup accordingly, and also the talent you're going to get from the market is quite important, because like you need to also like get the right people in a way that you can just like they can learn and they can improve their skills accordingly, because like the tech is already quite challenging. It is very dynamic, very competitive, which requires that you're not going to be able to project everything. There's going to be many things on the road, and you are going to get this challenge, and you need to react fast, and you need to just like, you need to have a team that are really help to, they need to be able to adapt these. So in this regard, like focusing on the right people, getting the right culture, etc., so they can learn. I don't think there's an issue, because learning right now is cheaper when you compare the previous. And maybe the tougher thing is to unlearn in an extent, because people are coming with a set of information, but they need to change them, and it is even harder. So focusing on how they're gonna like teach people, how they're gonna train people, getting the right people with the right values, and helping them to extend their skills in a way that they can think globally and they can focus on the customer and their problem that they can solve.
Well, I can say as Ada, fantastic. And I want to say as Endeavour, we're very proud to be working with you and supporting you. And I know your team is just expanding here to South Africa. So looking forward to seeing you expand successfully in our local market, I have no doubt. And you've got many of the corporates connected through the SME funds. So we'll all be working with you to deliver that. But thanks so much for your insights. Great to speak to you, and back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Virginia.
Great. Many thanks, Ali and Ada. I think it was a really refreshing take that on how if you come from an uncertain economic and political environment, it doesn't inhibit success. And I think if anything, it seems that adversity spurs innovation. And as you were talking, I was just thinking it's a really timely reminder that South Africa shares so many characteristics with other developing economies. And this idea of South African exceptionalism, I think, can often create artificial barriers to success. You know, so that the optimism and the ambition around setting your sights high, being a global leader, becoming a billion-dollar company, I think that is exciting, and it's positive, and it's great energy. So that is a really good segue, I think, to our next speaker, Melvin Lubega. Melvin comes from a highly pedigreed, if I'd like to say, background. He studied actuarial science. He went to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. He did stints at Goldman Sachs and BCG. And then he co-founded GoOne, which is an e-learning tech business. And this year, incredibly impressively, GoOne was listed as a Y Combinator top company alongside giants like Airbnb and Dropbox. And they've also received over $80 million investment. And that's from the likes of Microsoft, from Oxford University, from Salesforce. So super impressive. So Melvin, we're looking forward to hearing your story. And also, importantly, I'd love to hear how being an Endeavour entrepreneur has assisted you in your journey. So over to you.
No, and thank you very much for that kind introduction, Lisa, and really thank you to the previous speakers for teeing up, I think, what's an important part of this conversation. I'd like to almost depart where I think Adrian began. And Adrian began saying, you know, entrepreneurship's the most exciting journey one can go on. And I would add that, you know, any exciting journey is best taken with somebody else. And often as entrepreneurs, we think of that being our co-founders in the business and partners. But often, and I want to highlight at least sharing some of the bits about our journey, just the importance of other partners on that journey. And I think like ecosystem partners and funders. I guess just by way of introduction, what we do at GoOne. So what GoOne essentially provides is the world's largest online corporate training library. So we bring together about over 100,000 learning items into one library, one subscription. You can almost think of us like a Netflix for corporate training. And so we offer that to a large number of organizations across 28 countries, and we have teams in 8. And so it's been our journey, really, the focus is about how do we unlock a positive potential through a love for learning. And that's been our true North Star. And so I want to share a bit about our journey and how I think role players, as Lisa mentioned, like Endeavour, have been part of that. And so when I always go back to thinking about the startup journey, you know, John Donne, I think it was 1624 in his poem said, you know, no man is an island. And I think it's something which we take for granted, entrepreneurial journey. And so when we began GoOne, I began it with a co-founder of mine who I was doing my postgraduate studies with in the UK, and he was from Australia. but neither of us had the experience of actually building and scaling international company, except, within our understanding of our local markets. And so it was very important for us early on. And I think to Ada's point, and great to hear that Insight has come to South Africa. That's particularly exciting. That if you want to build a global business that has a global impact, we need to begin with that global mindset at the start. And so one of the key insights for me was that, it takes the same amount of effort to build something small as it does to build something big. And so ambition was always going to be global as a business at the outset. And we wanted to find partners and allies who had been there and done that, because we've always had the premise of, as entrepreneurs and as founders in our business, we want to make new mistakes and learning from others. And so we're fortunate to do a program, as Lisa alluded to, called Y Combinator, and also in our scale-up journey to work with Endeavor. And it's been interesting because, I think Y Combinator, phenomenally great brand, Airbnb, Dropbox, many phenomenal companies there. It was definitely valuable in that first phase of our growth, thinking through, establishing almost like the pipes for our business. And as we grew and scaled our sales funnel and our products and so forth. But if I think about what really took us to the inflection point, I think where we were as a business at the time was through being able to leverage, and I think Alison mentioned it, mentorship networks. And I think, second to none, I definitely put Endeavor up there for that. And, often so it's interesting, when I was applying to Endeavor, and just more random fun fact, I'd never heard of Endeavor. I wondered why Endeavor spelt it without a U, and I was like, I thought my English was good, but it was an American spelling. But what was quite interesting, I was at a Global Entrepreneurship Week event, just giving a talk, again, just sharing my journey. And one of the Endeavor mentors actually approached me after and said, Malvin, you should definitely consider this particular program called Endeavor. And that sparked off what has been now a nearly 5-year journey with Endeavor. And just the advice that we got, and I think it's the 2 phases I want to highlight. So one, in applying to Endeavor locally, I was fortunate to speak with Adrian's partner, Bayer Schwartzberg, around our business as we're trying to go through the process. And I think some of the questions that Barry asked me, and was more just asking the question, not even the answer he gave, around thinking through how you create value for your customers over long term, particularly when we service corporates, because we're a B2B business, we're extremely valuable. And when you fast forward that to when we were in our final stages of the Endeavor process, at that point in time, we'd just closed a contract with the Malaysian government, and we wanted to expand into that particular region using that as a starting point. We had about 200,000 people were training each week. And we were very intentional about, again, leveraging the Endeavor experience to actually do our ISP, which is like the International Selection Panel, where you get selected, to happen in Malaysia. And because we did so, we're actually able to meet Mark Chang, who's a co-founder of a very large, almost the equivalent of a Careers 24. It's a company called Job Street in Malaysia. And just being able to get his insights and also his contacts into the local market is something which we don't take for granted. And so after that, we're able to have a good base, let's call it, in that particular market. And I think just that importance of being able to lean on mentors and, making new mistakes has been phenomenal in our journey as we've scaled up, I think, particularly thinking through our Go One journey. And I think, whilst, advice is good, they always say, if you want advice, ask for investment. If you want investment, ask for advice. And on our journey, as Lisa mentioned, been very fortunate to have, again, good investment partners. And it's interesting because in our last investment round, Microsoft, Salesforce, and others invested about $40 million into our business. And the initial contact into Microsoft actually came via someone we met in the Endeavor ecosystem, getting involved in a few global Endeavor events. And so you just don't necessarily know where that opportunity is going to come from. And I think having investment partners who understand your space. And so for us, Microsoft being one of the biggest, B2B software or enterprise software companies in the world, definitely a strong ally. And, I also wish, when we were building it out, we had like a SME fund, because the reality is having the biggest corporates in South Africa as your LPs or investors in a fund, I suspect, will also allow one to get access to those corporates. And I think it's something you can't discount in your scale-up journey, is the importance of getting that leg up, because, entrepreneurship is hard. And any sort of advantage you can get through your partners, through ecosystems, through networks you have, is something which is fairly phenomenal. And, to my origin story around Endeavor, the benefit I got was really at a mentorship event, bumping into an Endeavor mentor. And I definitely find benefit in my journey, the ability to pay it forward and help other entrepreneurs. And so serve on a few boards and invest in a few businesses today. But I think that particular importance of the community. And so I guess bringing it together, if I reflect on my journey from that perspective, I'd say there are probably 3 things I take away. One is scale. You might as well have a global ambition, do something big, because the same amount of effort. I think 2, no man is an island, and you want to go on the journey with others, whether that's your co-founders and your partners. And I think 3, the most rewarding stuff is the impact, and that can be through paying it forward, even to the impact of your business. And so that's been our journey to date, and I'll say to date because we have a long way ahead of us, hopefully. Otherwise, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Melvin, that's amazing. I mean, we're incredibly proud of your achievements, and I particularly, having known you since I sat on the panel that selected you as a Rose, and now to this, and you've managed to stay so humble and grounded despite your successes. It's quite phenomenal. And I love the Netflix of corporate training. It's quite a phenomenal story. So thank you, and thank you for joining us. Our last speaker, and not least, who we're going to move on to, is Lethabo Motsoaledi. She 3 years ago co-founded Voice, which is an AI platform that helps insurers monitor their contact centers. And Voice and Lethabo have received a number of accolades and awards, and they're also backed by Techstars. And last year, Lethabo and her co-founder moved Voice's head office to Amsterdam. So they're now both based in both Cape Town and Amsterdam. So again, that story about scaling, about having global ambition, and about being brilliant and optimistic people. And so Lethabo, we're very proud that you're going to be part of the cohort of this year's local scale-up program. And over to you to hear about your journey.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. My name is Lethabo Motsoaledi. I'm a 27-year-old South African. I was born in Cape Town. I grew up in Polokwane, and I survived Pretoria. Then I found my way back to Cape Town, but now, as Lisa mentioned, I live in Amsterdam. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Voice. If you've called a call center before, you've probably heard the saying, "This call is being recorded for quality and training purposes." The reality is there is a team of quality assurers that listen to these calls to ensure compliance and a fair outcome for the company and the customer. This quality assurance activity is largely driven by regulatory pressure, financial risk, and a lack of trust from consumers. So it's become imperative for banks and insurers to monitor 100% of customer interactions and to ensure compliance and also capture any complaints before they snowball. However, quality assurance or quality assuring 100% of calls in the current manual way is such an exorbitant cost that most companies only settle for just 5%. So at Voice, we're empowering companies to quality assure 100% of their calls with 80% less QA assessors, whereas with Voice, a 30-minute call, it used to take an hour to assess, but with Voice, they can now complete call assessments in under 5 minutes. So using Voice, fewer complaints are left unaddressed, which means there's increased customer trust in the market, and there's less time actually spent listening to calls, which means that more time is spent on training errors and preventing costly errors. One thing I often hear when I talk about AI is, how does this actually impact my bottom line? Well, beyond the AI, we help companies automate their quality assurance and complaints handling workflows. We've helped companies like Momentum witness a 50% reduction in onboard complaints and halve their negative call center client experience. We've also helped a leading life insurer catch 150% more risk on their sales calls, where they previously had a team of 32 quality assurance agents monitoring just 40%. They now reach 100% with only 4 agents. Today, Voice has processed the calls of over 200,000 end consumers. So like Lisa mentioned, Voice turned 3 years old in February this year, and we have an ambitious goal of reaching 200 million end consumers through acquiring 2,000 banks and insurers by the year 2030. These 2,000 companies are in English-speaking markets like the US, the UK, and Australia. I briefly mentioned that I'm in Amsterdam. In April last year, about 4 weeks into that 2-week lockdown, we made the move into the Netherlands to be closer to the UK market. This has gone really well for us because the issues we identified in South Africa are felt even more severely in these markets. Regulations are stricter, and the cost of labor of a quality assurance analyst listening to calls is 10 times higher in the UK than it is in South Africa. Our team, which doubled in size in the past year, has found that our South Africanness is a major advantage. We were always a primarily digital company, but COVID lockdowns forced us to double down on operating remotely and acquiring customers remotely. Our extremely talented engineering and operations team can continue serving customers from anywhere in the world. However, we believe in South African skills and talent so much that we will always look to South Africa to fill our engineering and product needs. My co-founder and I have always believed in deliberate mentorship. 4 months after founding Voice, we risked it all and flew our then 4-man team to Germany for 3 months to join an SAP IO accelerator program, which was powered by Techstars, where we met an incredible group of people and advisors who still advise us today. We learned that no one can give you more honest feedback or advice than another founder who's just been burned. And so we sought to find more networks that really believe in investing in founders to help them scale their businesses to the next level by connecting them to people who will accelerate their paths. Endeavor is one such network, which we've always set our eyes on. So today, we're really honored to be part of the local scale-up program, where our trajectory is accelerated once more so that one day we could join the network of Endeavor entrepreneurs that other founders look up to and aspire to be. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, what an amazing story, right? From Polokwane to Amsterdam, Lethabo, we are so excited to have you on board, and what an inspiring story and amazing traction. And so it looks like we've now come to the end of our program. I think the energy and the passion shared today is inspiring and really makes us and makes me, I think, excited and proud to be part of this community. As everyone's spoken about, a community of inspiring individuals, inspiring entrepreneurs, and people who are looking out for each other. And so over the next few months, we will share a lot of stories about our local scale-ups. We will share a lot of stories, Lethabo, about you guys and how you are taking your business to even bigger levels and seeing your names in lights in Amsterdam. And I think that this will highlight just how powerful entrepreneurship is and just how important it is that we cherish our entrepreneurs and we see them as a national asset. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming today and for joining us. And any media queries or any follow-ups can be directed to Danny and Sandra, whose details you all have. Thank you.